Max Verstappen produced one of the most unexpected results of the 2026 Formula One season at the Hungarian Grand Prix, salvaging second place for Red Bull on a weekend where his car had struggled with tire degradation from Friday onward. The result stunned even his own team, who had not planned for a podium finish given the issues plaguing the car throughout practice and qualifying. But the real story of the weekend belonged to a different team entirely. Ferrari arrived in Budapest looking like the fastest car on the grid, and left with almost nothing to show for it. The warning signs of what was coming were nowhere in sight after Friday practice. Ferrari topped both sessions at the Hungaroring, a dominant start that suggested the Scuderia had found the setup to finally challenge for a win. Lando Norris ended up on top of the timesheet alongside them, but it was Ferrari's 1-2 across both Friday sessions that set the tone heading into qualifying. Lewis Hamilton carried that momentum into Saturday, finishing second on the grid, agonizingly close behind Norris. The margin between them was just 0.012 seconds, one of the tightest pole battles of the season. Charles Leclerc rounded out the picture, qualifying third and giving Ferrari 2 cars inside the top 3. Then came Sunday, and everything Ferrari had built across the weekend fell apart. Both Ferrari started the Grand Prix on soft tires, a decision that broke from the rest of the front-runners, who opted for mediums. The gamble did not pay off. As the race developed, the tire choice failed to translate into any meaningful track position, and Ferrari's pace advantage from Friday evaporated in real time. Team principal Fred Vasseur did not try to dress up what had happened. Speaking after the race, he said plainly, "Today we made too many mistakes, poor starts, wrong tire calls and botched pit stops." In a separate interview, Vasseur summarized the gap between Ferrari's Friday pace and its Sunday result in one line: "We expected a 1-2. We achieved a 1-2, but not on the right day." Vasseur later explained the thinking, or the lack of it, behind the tire decision. He said the team had not been able to complete a long run on all 3 tire compounds during practice, which left the strategists making what he called 2 separate bets on race day. Both bets failed. Hamilton's race in particular turned into a compounding disaster. He crossed the finish line in 4th place on the road, but was handed a 5-second penalty for speeding in the pit lane, which dropped him to 5th. That penalty pushed him behind his own teammate, Leclerc, turning what should have been a respectable recovery drive into a public setback. It was Hamilton's 4th penalty across the last 3 races, a pattern that is becoming increasingly difficult for Ferrari to explain away. The championship implications of Hamilton's afternoon were significant. Kimi Antonelli, who finished third at the Hungaroring and completed the podium for Mercedes, extended his championship lead over Hamilton to 50 points heading into the summer break. That gap now stands as one of the widest of the season, and it puts real pressure on Ferrari to figure out what went wrong in Hungary before the sport returns from its shutdown. Vasseur's own words leave little room for the team to spin the result as anything other than self-inflicted. A car capable of a Friday 1-2 finished the race weekend in 4th and 5th, and the team principal said so himself, in public, without hedging. While Ferrari's collapse dominated the post-race conversation, the race itself was actually decided elsewhere, inside McLaren's own garage. Oscar Piastri passed Norris at turn 2 on the opening lap and took control of the first half of the Grand Prix. He resisted team instructions to let Norris back through, holding the lead through the opening stint. That command of the race lasted until lap 38, when Piastri made contact with Carlos Sainz's Williams while lapping the Spaniard. Sainz had failed to react to the blue flags being shown to him at the time, and stewards ruled that he had been wholly responsible for the collision. His penalty was reduced to 5 seconds after the stewards determined that Piastri had been outside his direct line of sight at the moment of contact. The stewards' leniency toward Sainz did nothing to repair the damage already done to Piastri's race. He retired from the Grand Prix with a gearbox failure on lap 56, an incident that triggered a virtual safety car and reshaped the final stages of the race. Norris used that moment to complete a low-risk final pit stop, locking in track position and eventually converting it into his first Grand Prix victory of the 2026 season. It was a result built as much on Piastri's misfortune as on Norris's own pace, and it came in a race where Ferrari, not McLaren, had looked like the team to beat just 2 days earlier. Mercedes had its own moment of drama before Antonelli ever reached the podium. George Russell endured a difficult start of his own, with anti-stall activating on his car off the grid and dropping him as low as 19th in the early laps. He spent much of the race recovering ground, eventually working his way back up to finish 7th. That recovery kept Mercedes' overall points haul respectable for the weekend, even as Russell's own afternoon stood in stark contrast to his teammates, who stood on the podium and further extended his championship advantage over the rest of the field. Away from the fight at the front, Aston Martin produced one of the more significant technical developments of the entire weekend. The team introduced a 16-part upgrade package to the AMR26, overseen by technical leadership from Adrian Newey. The package covered a new floor, revised sidepods, a new nose, and changes across the rear of the car, representing one of the most comprehensive in-season updates from any team so far this year. The result was immediate. Fernando Alonso reached Q2 for the first time in the 2026 season, a benchmark that had eluded him for the entire first half of the year. Speaking afterward, Alonso described the step forward as a new baseline to work with for the second part of the year. Newey confirmed that the upgrade path does not stop in Hungary. Further updates are planned for the Dutch Grand Prix at Zandvoort and the following round in Baku, meaning Aston Martin intends to keep pushing development through the second half of the season rather than banking the Hungary gains as a one-off. Honda's revised power unit specification is also due to arrive after the summer break, adding another layer to the team's plans for improvement. Speculation about Alonso's long-term future at the team continues to circulate, tied in part to his upcoming 45th birthday during the break, though reporting indicates that his future will depend on continued progress from the car rather than any decision that has already been made. The Hungarian weekend leaves Formula One heading into its summer shutdown with several storylines still unresolved. Ferrari's collapse from a dominant Friday to a 4th and 5th finish on Sunday is the headline problem the team must now solve before the season resumes. Vasseur has already put the blame squarely on execution, citing poor starts, incorrect tire calls, and mistakes in the pit lane, which means the fix is not about outright pace but about eliminating the operational errors that turned a potential 1-2 into a missed opportunity. Verstappen's second-place finish, achieved despite his own complaints about tire degradation throughout the weekend, keeps Red Bull firmly in the championship conversation heading into the second half of the year, even without their car showing the pace that result might suggest. Antonelli's podium finish and his extended points lead over Hamilton put Mercedes in the strongest position of any team as the season resumes, particularly with Ferrari now needing to explain how its Friday form failed to convert into Sunday results. Russell's recovery from 19th to 7th after his anti-stall issue also showed that Mercedes has depth beyond its championship leader, a detail that matters over the course of a long season. And with Aston Martin finally showing tangible signs of progress after a difficult start to the year, complete with a 16-part upgrade package and Alonso's first Q2 appearance of the season, the picture in the midfield now looks considerably less settled than it did before the sport arrived in Budapest. For Hamilton specifically, the accumulation of penalties is becoming a pattern that Ferrari cannot ignore. 4 penalties across 3 races is not a coincidence, and it is happening at the exact moment Antonelli is pulling away in the championship standings. The 50-point gap now separating them heading into the break is a significant number this early in the sport's calendar, and it puts real pressure on both Hamilton and Ferrari to change course when racing resumes at Zandvoort. Piastri, meanwhile, heads into the break having lost a race he controlled for more than half its distance, undone not by pace but by a mechanical failure that arrived just as the stewards had cleared him of primary blame for the Sainz incident. Whether that costs him more than points in the short term remains to be seen once the championship picture is fully reassessed after the summer shutdown.